Hello everybody, John from Gaming in the Wild here with another month ahead video for you. 2025 is flying by, can you believe it's already August? But a new month means a new game releases video, and there is plenty to be excited about this month. I've filtered out 10 interesting indie games for you, from a creepy lighthouse keeper simulator to a fantasy skiing rhythm game to a 20-minute indie where you play as the final boss. I will also take a quick look at a couple of AA and AAA releases this month, including a Sony promoted game that was made in my hometown of Reykjavik, Iceland. Then we'll round things out with a now playing section when I'll let you know about some of the obscure but fun indie games that I've been trying out that I think you might like too. If you find a game to check out, then be sure to give the video a like. You can subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in your feed, and I will tell you all about the channel's Patreon at the end. And with that, let's go. The first game that I want to talk about is called Esophaguys, and this is a game that I did actually get to go hands-on with at the London Games Festival earlier this year. It's a pretty slapstick game that has a nice development story. It's being made by 4 indie developer friends who met in college, and they've been running at it pretty hard with lots of appearances at Day of the Devs and lots of other indie game events. It's a game where you play as old people with weird, stretchy, elongated necks. You can stretch, you can bite to cling on, and you can swing past obstacles, whether you're completing the single-player story, doing co-op levels, or taking on the various minigames, speedrun courses and challenge modes, including a masochist difficulty level for all you hard game sickos out there. And you'll be doing all of this, the developer says, to the world's first soundscape composed of elderly grunts and twanging tones. It's out now for PC and all the consoles, and it looks like a really fun party game. Perfect if you want something funny to play with your friends. That's Esophaguys. Next up is a game that I'm pretty sure that very few of you out there will have heard of. It's called The Warrior, and it's a pretty interesting Brazilian solo developer project with tiny pixel art graphics and platforming gameplay. The twist here is that you're going to be changing character a lot throughout your playthrough. It looks like you'll play as the hero, the villain, the monster, or as the developer themselves says, take control of legendary warriors, giant worms, greedy kings, and lazy demons, each with their own purpose. I like that premise, and I'm curious to see where the developer takes it, especially when it comes to the story. The gameplay looks tight and exciting as well. It's only $4 on Steam right now, so I think it's worth a try at that price. That's The Warrior. I'm going to guess that a lot of you out there remember the indie game Dredge, the spooky open-world boat game that came out and was a big hit. If you played that game, you'll probably remember the spooky old lighthouse keeper who sees all the strange things that are going on out at sea. Static Dread, the Lighthouse, is a game that is kind of based on that premise. The game starts when you arrive fresh on the job at a strange-looking lighthouse, but quickly find out that things are not what they seem. The locals are weird, and weird things happen at night, and as all of the weirdness unfolds around you, your job is to keep the power on, to keep monitoring various signals and to try and guide ships into harbour. So it really is a life or death matter. The circumstances seem to escalate pretty quickly, with locals knocking on the door and things going bump in the night. And the devs described this one as Lovecraft meets Papers, Please, a perfect 4-word description that I think tells you what you need to know about this one. I enjoyed the demo at Next Fest, and you can grab this on Steam from August the 6th or throw it on your wishlist for the Halloween season. That's Static Dread, the Lighthouse. We're doing a bit of a handbrake turn when it comes to vibe with this next one because it's a wholesome comfort food game in the vein of Stardew Valley. It's called Ritual of Raven, and there are a lot of games like this out there. We've seen a flood of them in recent years, but this one stood out from the pack to me. First of all, it has really lovely artwork, I think. It's colourful, it's stylized, and it's really nicely animated, but it also has a bit of a gameplay twist, because rather than doing all of that rock chipping and wood chopping yourself, in Ritual of Raven you can use action cards to program mechanical friends who will do all of the farming graft for you. You start off with just one, but you'll soon have a little army of helpers tending to your fields, which I've got to say looks pretty satisfying. So if, like me, you're someone for whom farming games sometimes seem a little bit too much like hard work, then this could be one for you. It's coming to Switch and Steam on the 7th. That's Ritual of Raven. Also on the 7th, we get Wildwood Down. This is an interesting looking game based on a real life person called Daniel, the childhood best friend of the developer, who happens to have Down syndrome. The game bills itself as a comedy thriller with point and click elements set in the beach town of Wildwood, New Jersey. There's a seaside boardwalk there, complete with beach parties that you can go to, with games you can play and lots of amusements. So there's plenty to do just exploring the beachside, but it also has a bit of a Lost Boys vibe, with some creepy goings on after the sun has set. I think this is a game with a lot of charm. I really like the art style, with pixel characters wandering around in a nicely realised 3D world. It has some really fun voice acting, including Daniel playing himself, and it has a surf rock noir soundtrack as well. This one was at Day of the Devs, and it's been doing the circuit of indie festivals, so hopefully it's been picking up some steam, and that's exactly where you can play it when Wildwood Down comes to PC and Mac on the 7th of August. I'm sure a lot of you out there remember the game Thumper. It was a seminal, popular, well-reviewed action rhythm game where you play to the beat to maneuver a fast-moving vehicle from track to track, avoiding obstacles and scoring points. Well, Fresh Tracks is an interesting new take on that formula, because in this game, rather than racing a sci-fi insect across electric rails, you're actually cross-country skiing. And while that might sound like a mellow kind of time, you can probably see from the footage that it's really not, because you're skiing through a fantasy realm in this game with a flaming sword, bashing enemies out of the way as you go. It has a high energy metal soundtrack, and it has roguelike elements to keep things fresh from game to game. I think that's kind of an interesting twist actually, because in Thumper you could pretty much learn the levels completely, whereas in this one you're really going to have to stay on your toes. It was also apparently a breakout hit on the PAX show floor, so all the signs are good for this one. It's only on Steam for PC and Linux for now. That's Fresh Tracks, out on the 12th of August. 5 more indie games to go, and on the 14th of the month we get Ovis Loop. And I know from reading the comments that a lot of you out there are feeling a little tired of action roguelikes, and I really do get that. We have seen a lot of them lately, but Ovis Loop really jumps out of the pack for me. First up, there are the visuals. It mixes attractive pixel graphics with really cool uses of light and visual distortions to make it look really interesting and alive. Then there's the action itself, which looks fast-paced, mobile and slick, and it also has the promise of depth in builds, which is all important for this kind of game in my opinion. If you watch my review of Lost in Random: The Eternal Die, you'll know that I really enjoy the puzzle of build crafting my way to victory in a roguelike game. It's always a puzzle that I enjoy cracking, whether that's a busted high card build in Balatro or some kind of broken burning dash loadout in Ovis Loop. Of course, you never really know with an action game until you get your hands on it, and this one's going to be all about the feel. So with that in mind, the developer is putting it through an early access period before the full fat version. If that sounds like your cup of game and you'd like to be involved in the development process, you can check out Ovis Loop on Steam from the 14th of the month. The next one is a bit of a weird pick. It is called Iwakura Aria. This is a very weird looking visual novel with distinctive hand-drawn art and Japanese voice acting. You play as a girl who's starting her life over after some tough times. She gets a job as a maid in a large manor house where a well-to-do seeming family lives. So far so good, and things start off okay, but there's much more going on here than meets the eye, of course. In fact, it looks like things in this game might get pretty dark. We get flashes of disturbing events in the trailer, and I just want to say that if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, you should probably check the content warnings on this game, because it looks like there's some pretty full-on stuff as you get further into the story. Who knows where it all will end up, but if you like the sound of a visual novel with this kind of spooky horror twist to it, maybe something in the Doki Doki Literature Club kind of ballpark, this could be one for you. That's Iwakura Aria, out on Steam on the 14th of the month. This next one is my kind of weird. I really like it when something comes along that breaks the fourth wall in video games, like that viral video you might remember about all of the unseen workers running around putting chests out for Link and Zelda. In The Dark Queen of Mortholme, you play as the final boss in a fantasy game, the most powerful being in the universe no less. So of course when a tiny sword-wielding hero comes your way, you can crush them easily, but then they just keep coming back again and again and again, which seems to cause something of an existential crisis for this powerful Dark Queen. This game is a truly small solo developer indie project. In fact, it only takes 20 minutes to play it in a single sitting, but even though it's an indie experiment, it promises multiple endings based on the choices you made. And I really love a short game that doesn't outstay its welcome and does what it needs to do in a concise runtime. So I'm super intrigued to see where this short story goes when The Dark Queen of Mortholme lands on Steam on August the 15th. From the smallest release on this list to the biggest indie release of the month, the next game that I have for you is Sword of the Sea. This is the new game from Giant Squid, the makers of Abzu and The Pathless, 2 wordless exploration games with a sense of post-human desolation, melancholy, and a lot of visual flair to them. Giant Squid is also a studio that was born from the original team behind the seminal game Journey, and Sword of the Sea seems like a return to the source. It's a sand surfing game that mixes a fantastical desert environment engagement, with fluid movement, with tricking. And this is one of those tricky games that I'm both fascinated by any detail I can get my hands on, while also not wanting to know anything more about it at all. I feel like some of the trailers are giving away too much already, showing off some spectacular set pieces, some airborne gameplay sections, and megafauna flying through the air. The game looks really special, and will be treated to another Austin wintry soundtrack as well. I think that the games Giant Squid produced speak for themselves, so I am absolutely in the bag for this one. It was one of my most anticipated games back at the start of the year before we had a release date, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. That's Sword of the Sea, coming to PC and PlayStation 5 on August 19th. The last game on this list almost went into the AA and AAA section. It's by Saber Interactive, which is hardly an indie publisher, but I think it looks like a game that you might like to hear about. It's quite an ambitious looking open world action game with an art style that I think just about qualifies as low poly, in that you can see the smoothed off polygons that things are made out of. I really like the look of the combat in this one, which looks aerial and fluid and mobile with lots of different abilities, and I am an absolute sucker for any game that lets me run around in a rich, explorable little world, just finding stuff and doing my own thing. The main weapon seems to be your shield, which has multiple uses. You can throw it at enemies and it will come back to you. You can surf on it to slide over the landscape, and you can use it as a Zelda-style paraglider. So if you've enjoyed games like The Pathless or Chia or Solar Ash, this could be one for you. Count me as interested for sure. That is the Knightling, coming to PC and all the consoles on August 28th. And if you're still with me here at the 11-minute mark, you might be the kind of person that is interested in the Gaming in the Wild Patreon. Before you click away, just hear me out. It's only $1 a month. You get access to our Indie Game Lovers Discord. In fact, the lists that I use to make these month-ahead videos are contributed to by patrons. So if you become a patron, you can throw games in for consideration. If you're a content creator, there's also a content creation channel, and I share behind-the-scenes blogs about how I mix audio, how I mix music, how I write scripts, and that kind of thing. You get access to 20 bonus episodes about things like traveling to Japan and going around Akihabara Electric City and game shopping. And you also get a thank you on the next video, and so a big thank you to Alex Hitchin, Ilya, Josiah, Wolf Nanaki, and Jessica, all of whom just joined up. Big thank you to Boss Tier patrons, Boss Champ and Shy Guy. And with that, let's get on with the video. There are a couple of AA and AAA games coming out that are of interest this month as well. On the 12th of the month, we get Echoes of the End. And funnily enough, the developer of this game is actually based right here in Reykjavik, Iceland, where I live. I even drive past the studio sometimes on my way to the supermarket. So I was really happy to see that Echoes of the End was launched on a Sony State of Play, which is really big news. Iceland has one big studio, the company that makes EVE Online, and lots of small indie studios, but this is something new. This is something in between. And the game looks very impressive. It has that third-person Sony action-adventure aesthetic going on. So I'm really rooting for this one. I really hope that it's good, and I'm going to be playing it for sure. It's coming to PC, Xbox Series, and PlayStation 5 on August the 12th. That's Echoes of the End. On the 26th, Gears of War Reloaded is coming to PlayStation, and there's been some interesting talk recently about the console wars basically being over. It looks like PlayStation kind of won. Xbox are now basically releasing all of their crown jewels on other platforms. I think it's probably not long before we see Halo and Starfield coming to PlayStation as well. Xbox, of course, are claiming it as a victory, saying they're now one of the biggest publishers in the world, including on PlayStation. Although I think some of you out there would probably make a strong argument saying that Nintendo are doing pretty well too, having sold 6 million Switch 2s in 7 weeks. Either way, Gears of War will be available on PlayStation. It looks like a remastered version, and it seems like it should be a bigger deal than it is. I guess Gears of War is kind of a lapsed series at this point. We haven't seen a new game for a really long time. But anyway, any PlayStation players who've ever eyed the Gears of War series and wondered what it's all about will be able to get their little hooves on it now. That's Gears of War Reloaded, out on PlayStation on the 26th. On the 28th, it's something of a more polished remake, let's say. Metal Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. The remake is coming out. It is the Kojima-less reboot of the legendary stealth game. Hard to say where the review scores are going to come down on this one. I never played the original. I'm not a huge stealth game fan, but I am curious about the legendary status of this game for sure. And then on the 29th, we get a long in development third-person action game called Lost Soul Aside. Now this game seems to have been through a rough couple of years, being rebranded as a Souls-like midway through development. I'm always curious about a new game of this type, even though we get so many of them, but you know, some of them are a Steel Rising and then others are a Lies of P, so you just really never know where they're going to come down. My personal suspicion, based on the look and feel of all of the material we've seen of Lost Soul Aside, is that it may be more of a Steel Rising than a Lies of P, but let's wait and see. That's Lost Soul Aside, coming to PlayStation and PC on the 29th. The very last game that I'm going to talk about is called Wordplay, and the reason I'm bringing it up now right at the end of the video is that it missed out on being a part of last month's Look Ahead video because it was a snap release, or a shadow drop if you like. It's made by Mark Brown, aka The Game Maker's Toolkit, a YouTuber you might know. And funnily enough, he said that he was going to quit game dev after making his first game, Mind Over Magna. He went quiet for a long time, and then from out of nowhere, he's arrived with a second game called Wordplay. It's a post-Balatro game for sure, but instead of relying on the rules of poker for its bases, it relies on the rules of Scrabble. I absolutely love word games, as well as playing all of the video games that I love, like Death Stranding 2 and all of the indie games I'm talking about. I play Wordle every day, I play Blossom Game every day, I play Spelling Bee every day, and Wordplay has gone straight into my rotation. I find it very addictive to make long words, to make builds where I can triple the scores of certain letters, where I can get bonuses for getting words that end in a D or start with a QU. So this really does mix up the fun of Scrabble with the roguelike thrill of getting builds and cracking the puzzle. And I think if this game goes well, it could end up being bought by the New York Times or the Guardian or Netflix or something. It really is that addictive. So check it out if you like word games, if you like roguelikes. I think it's a really good game that came out this year. And with that, I will round up the video. I will mention there is a weekly podcast that you can get on my YouTube homepage on the podcast tab. Please do like this video if you've watched to the end, subscribe to the channel for more like this, join the Patreon if you'd like more from me. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you on the next one.